Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Constricted and Addicted. I am Gary, and today I'm going to talk about my absence with the channel and kind of where I'm at with my reticulated pythons and some other things. So stay tuned, and we shall be right back. So last week I did a video and I went to go edit the video and I thought, man, this thing is just cheesy. This thing is just cheesy. I still have not uploaded the video because I just wasn't liking what I was doing. And my goal with this channel is never to be like the most popular YouTube on, that's not me. I just do this because I love my animals and I want to show my animals to you. I want to share them with you. I want to share my care of what I do with them. And ever since I started actually focusing more on the reticulated pythons, I wanted to focus more of my channel and my efforts and my care on the reticulated pythons because it takes a special breed of person to raise these things, I believe. It takes a special breed of person to own them and to care for them. A lot of people may end up with a reticulated python simply because it looked cool on somebody else's channel, or they went to somebody else's house and they held a very, very docile reticulated python and they got to thinking that, wow, if they can have one, I can have one. They don't realize that these animals, they get big and they get big quick. And what I wanted to do was just kind of be more of like a voice for these animals and help people to understand what they are getting themselves into when you purchase a reticulated python. These are not gopher snakes. They are not colubrids. They are not boa constrictors. These animals get massive. And right here I have Scarface. Now Scarface is my pied reticulated python from Chris McVicker, and he is called Scarface for a reason. Let me see if I can get him to look at the camera. A lot of people have seen Scarface, but if you can see his lip, he has a cleft lip. He's also got a little bit of a sight impingement from his umbilical cord being wrapped around his mouth when he was born. So he is a male reticulated python. And when I got him, he was probably 2 feet long. And I've had him since September. He's at least doubled in size. He's a wonderful animal. I really had to work with this animal a lot. And he's still a little bit more touchier than the rest of the reticulated pythons that I own. He's never been threatening or defensive, but with his sight impingement, I think he's got a couple more issues. So he just requires a little bit more care, but he's absolutely a wonderful animal. But what I get into is that this animal may get about 14 feet long. And what I really wanted to focus on was helping people to understand what these animals are going to do, how big these animals are going to get, what do you need as far as care, what is it going to take for you to take care of one of these animals. So I get back to where I was editing that video last week, and once I got through the finished edit, I couldn't bring it to me to post it because it just felt like I was telling people how to do things, and that's not what I want to do. I have about 2 years of experience, total 2 years of experience with reticulated pythons, and I know that I have experience. I know that the experience that I have, I can share that with others. But there's people out there that have years upon years more experience handling these animals than I do. And when I got done editing that video, that's kind of what I felt like, is that I was aiming to be one of those people, like those people that have been doing this for a long time. And that's just not me. And like I said, what I want to do is basically be here for these animals. I want to be here for another keeper that wants to know more about the reticulated python. I want to be there for anybody who's got misconceptions about these beautiful animals, but also to make sure that if you end up with an animal like this, in a year's time, it can double, triple its size. And when you have a 7 to 8 foot snake as opposed to a little 3 to 4 foot snake or even smaller, they may be a little bit harder to rehome than, say, a smaller snake. So you get somebody who has a 6 to 8 foot reticulated python, and all of a sudden they've realized it's too big. They don't have the money to take care of it. They don't have the money to adequately cage it anymore. And you put it on Craigslist for sale, for instance, or you put it on Morph Market for sale. There's been quite a few instances where I myself have come across a reticulated python on Craigslist, and I've picked it up, taken it home, and took it under my care, because maybe the people that had it before just realized it got too big and they didn't know how to properly care for it, or they just felt at the time they didn't realize it was going to get as large as it did. So that's where I'm coming from, and that's what I want this channel to be about. I want this to be about my care. I want this to be about my experience. I want to be able to help people. I want to be able to give people the same information that I've been getting, and hopefully share that with you, so that if you choose a reticulated python, you have the ways and means to properly care for these animals, because they are absolutely wonderful animals. I love every one of the reticulated pythons I have. As far as personality wise, bar none. I mean, in my opinion, the reticulated python has absolutely got the best personality I've ever experienced in handling a snake, and probably the most personable personality as well. But I firmly believe that they do have a sense of who their owners are. I mean, a lot of my snakes that I own, I've had to work with. I've had to not train so much, but they've come to me in a manner where they're scared, and I've worked with that animal to the point where getting it out of its enclosure is no longer an issue. Getting it out my hands, there's no fear, there's no defensiveness about the animal whatsoever. But it takes consistency. And one of the things that I've learned over the years of owning these animals is that they're a lot different, especially when you go to get them out. You can go to get one of these animals out and have absolutely no issues. I do know people that feel comfortable enough not to use a hook when getting a reticulated python out, but that is not me. I do have a couple of instances where if I know where the animal is, I will not use a hook, just because I feel safe. And really all it takes is to touch the animal's body to understand and let it know that it's not being fed. But once you get struck at by a reticulated python because it thinks it's being fed, then that can really jar a new reticulated python owner to the point where they may neglect the animal. They're afraid that every time they go into that enclosure, that animal's just going to want to strike out at them and eat them, for instance. My first reticulated python a while back, before I started getting into the collection I have now, was a lavender albino mainland that I had purchased. It was a female, and very, very docile animal. Very docile animal. I could reach inside the quarantine bin, pull her out, no problem. Once I got her out of quarantine and into an enclosure, it all changed. I would open up that enclosure, and as soon as I did, she darted towards the front and she would start striking at me. And I didn't understand food response. I didn't understand that these animals are so food driven that 90% of them, I'm going to say, once you get into their enclosure, they hear you open up the locks. They hear you slide that glass door open, and they are in front of you like a ton of bricks going, okay, where's my food at? Where's my food? And they don't even think. They just come out and they strike. And my responsibility is to break them of that. It is to stop the strike. It is to get them into a different mode, which is usually your thinking mode, and then get them out with absolutely no problem at all. This is Clarice. Clarice is my 33% Calatoa, 33% Jampea, lavender albino, het for snow, which I don't breed, so the het for snow doesn't really mean anything to me, but she is the mini-me to my lavender albino Emma, who's a mainland. Emma's about 12 feet long, and Clarice is roughly 6 feet long, but beautiful animal. And she's probably one of the most docile animals that I have. She very rarely takes a strike at you when you open up the enclosure, although Most times I do use a hook with her, but I think it's important because if you go in there with that confidence that they're not going to strike at you, and then all of a sudden they latch on, that could be bad. I mean, these animals are very strong. They can rip tendons, so you'll possibly have stitches from a bite from one of these guys. So it's important that for the safety of the animal as well as the safety of yourself, that you use a hook, or at least I use a hook whenever I get my animals out. So anyways, that's kind of where I'm at. I want to make sure that if you're looking for a reticulated python, if you're looking for some reticulated python care, I want to be able to share my experience, not sound like I'm an experienced YouTuber with all this knowledge. I don't want to be that guy. What I do have and what I'm going to use at my disposal is I'm very connected to a lot of the people in the reticulated python community. And hopefully I can continue to bring these people to you. And if you have questions, you can ask people that have been doing this for years and years longer than I have. This Saturday night, we're going to have Abby, the curly-haired reptile keeper. We're going to have Chris from New Shed Serpents. We're going to have Tim from Intrepid Exotics. And we're going to have Taylor from D&T Retics. And they're going to be on. And basically what we're going to do is talk about introductions to owning a reticulated python. I want to talk about their experience. I want them to talk about what it was, the switch, was it their first animal? And if you have any questions about owning one of these beautiful animals, I encourage you to hop on the live stream, ask them their opinions, ask them their questions, see if you can get some questions answered, and see if owning a reticulated python is right for you. I love it. I absolutely would never go any direction. And the funny thing is that when I started a long time ago, I said I would never own a reticulated python. And what I did was I gravitated towards the super dwarfs first. The super dwarfs, I learned they stay smaller, but now that I own a few, and after talking to the breeders and getting rid of some of the misconceptions that I've been told about the super dwarfs, first of all, dwarf, super dwarf, that's all a marketing term. All that really is a term that gets people excited about owning a smaller size reticulated python with all the qualities of a mainland reticulated python. In some cases, a super dwarf will stay smaller, but it's like playing Russian roulette. You've got a mainland reticulated python, or you've got a locality and a mainland mixed together with 50%. And you've got, say, a male and a female with both qualities, and you put them together, that does not ensure that you're going to have a 10 to 12 foot snake at the end of the day, or an 8 to 10 foot snake at the end of the day. I am under the complete direction that these animals will grow as big as they get when they're full grown. And when they're full grown, nobody knows. I don't know. Eric Lee, who bred this girl, he doesn't know, and we'll know probably in about 10 years when she's really at a point where maybe she's almost full grown, but they continue to grow until they die. That's what they do. They will always continue to grow. The major growth spurt, from what I understand, is from 3 to 5. And once you get past 5 years old, the growing will slow down, but it continues. So anyways, that's where I'm at right now. I kind of question, why do I want to continue the channel? Why do I want to keep on doing this? I have a lot more fun, if that's the correct word to use, on Instagram, just shooting pictures off, and it's a lot easier. But what I really enjoyed is that when I get new subscribers on the channel, and I haven't even put a video up in months, and they're asking me, hey, I'm really looking forward to some reticulated python content. That got me excited to do this again. And then being on the podcast with FTL and Sexton and Flexen, that got me excited to do this again. So what I really want to remember is that this is just my experience. That's all this is. And if I can be anything more than an ambassador or a voice for these animals, that's really all I care about. That's all I want. I want to be someone who helps these animals get placed in a place where they belong, not because they looked cool on social media or for any other reason. they're different. They are way different animals. They are not like any other snake that you would own. And number one is just basically because of sheer size. When you go into the other logistics of housing, cleaning up after, feeding, for instance, I've got my Emma eats rabbits. So that's something you've got to ask yourself is that can you take a cute little fuzzy rabbit and feed it to a 12-foot snake, or a larger snake of that size that will take a rabbit? I mean, these are things that I even experienced keepers that I know where their snakes are now starting to get to that size. We talk amongst each other, and I had one person say, wow, I'm still kind of dreading the day that I got to do that. But they're ready to do it, right? So it's just something that, when it's a lot different than dangling a frozen thawed rat, right? It's a lot different. You're dangling a frozen thawed rabbit. And anyways, that's just something to think about. I wanted to put that out there. And I really enjoy the people that watch this channel. I enjoy people asking questions, and I enjoy the interactions that I get from the people that tune in, right? So I just want to say thank you. And from here on out, what I want to do is just provide this channel information that is really nothing more than my own experience. And if I get asked anything, man, I will go and see if I can find the answers from somebody else that I know that has more experience than me. So you guys, thank you so much for listening. And, like I said, I don't know what anybody else thinks out there. I just know what I think, and I don't want to be that cheesy YouTube guy. I just want to be a guy that wants to share his passion and his love for these beautiful animals with you, and make sure that if this is what you want to own, that you do all the research that you can and make sure that you're ready to own one of these amazingly beautiful animals.